Coming on the air with breaking news at the Supreme Court, with the court issuing several major decisions. The justices ruling that President Trump does not have the authority to fire Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook. It comes months after the president attempted to remove Cook from the Fed's Board of Governors after he accused her of mortgage fraud, a claim she denies. And in a 6-3 decision, the Supreme Court also ruling that President Trump can fire Federal Trade Commissioner Rebecca Slaughter. Let's bring in our senior legal correspondent, Laura Jarrett. Laura, a little bit of a split decision almost there. So let's start and unpack Cook. Was this what you were expecting? What's in this decision from the court?
Savannah, a pair of monumental rulings here, landmark decisions as it relates to who the president can fire. Most of the decisions here, as it relates to Cook here, a blow to the president here, as it says that he cannot fire Lisa Cook, who is a member of the Federal Reserve Board of Governors. The Supreme Court saying that essentially the Federal Reserve is different, and to accept the government's argument would essentially transform the Fed as we know it into at-will employment. It would be an interpretive step, to use the court's words, out of step with the statute that Congress enacted for our nation's traditional understanding of the central bank, protected for political interference. Now, it's a different decision as it relates to Rebecca Slaughter. She was a member of the Federal Trade Commission. In that case, they're saying that the president actually can fire her. Now, you might wonder why the difference there. They really do see the Fed as different. Now, obviously, the president has been quite critical of the Fed. The president has said he wants to see interest rates come down, and the court is saying traditionally, the Fed is supposed to remain independent, and today the court upholding that traditional and independence. Now, as it relates to Cook, it also bears mentioning here that there was a fair amount of process that the Supreme Court says just simply didn't happen. The president had said that she had engaged in mortgage fraud, something that she had repeatedly denied. He fired her via social media, and today the court saying that wasn't enough. Cook was entitled to some explanation of the evidence at issue, some avenue for a response, and a deadline by which that response would be due. So essentially saying you don't get to just fire her via tweet. She's entitled to more than that. However, as it relates to Slaughter, it's a different story, Savannah. In this case, she, too, had protections under federal law, under a federal statute that said she could only be fired for inefficiency, neglect of duty, or malfeasance in office. And on that score, again, as it relates to Slaughter, the court saying we hold that protection from removal is contrary to the separation of powers enshrined in the Constitution. A number of different of these federal agencies, these multi-member boards, have those types of statutory protections with that type of language included. So it's not just about the FTC. It relates to all of these sort of multi-member, quasi-independent agencies. The president can fire people who are members of those boards after today's ruling. But today, the court making it very clear they see the Fed as different. They see the Fed as insulated from the political process, and for reasons that our founders wanted and that the Congress wanted, to be able to insulate the Fed from this type of political pressure.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.